Hello, my name is Rosie Chachi, and today at 70 years old, I reflect on my journey that began around 50 years ago in the Radical MPL classroom at Ashesi University during my final Leadership 4 course. Back then, in 2025, I was just 20, and I was driven by faith, a desire to serve, and a deep curiosity about how technology, storytelling, and impact could come together to heal communities and solve problems. My vision has always been to use technology to create meaningful social impact. I didn't know exactly what form it would take, whether healthcare or education or digital access, but I just knew that I was called to be a socialpreneur, which is a social entrepreneur, because I always found joy in helping people, and I believe that innovation, when led with care, could solve problems and improve lives. Leadership to me was never about titles or loud moments. It was and still is about quiet service, deep listening, and using the gifts God gave me to uplift others. The lessons I learned from Ubuntu, servant leadership, and leading quietly became the foundation of how I lived and led. Back in 2025, I remember conducting a SWOT analysis at the beginning of the semester because I wanted to know myself more and track my progress around during my time taking the leadership course. Mr. Salim Wangabi, an Ashesi counselor, also highlighted the need for me to do that SWOT analysis. So I did. And my initial assessment results were my strengths, which are good communication skills, my natural ability to connect with people from diverse backgrounds, and then my dedication and perseverance. Despite this number of strengths, I also noticed some weaknesses, which were my impatience with slow processes, my tendency to take on too many responsibilities, and then my nervousness during public speaking, especially when there is like a large audience or a crowd. Opportunities available back then were multiple leadership roles on campus to practice and refine my skills, and then networking with guest speakers and alumni whenever there are seminars around campus. And also the persistent trait that I realized was burnout from overcommitment, and then some time management issues. Our leadership class didn't just expose these challenges that I had, but it gave me the tools to confront them. Readings like Why Measure Social Impact by Bev Meldrum and Pete Reed helped me to understand that making a lasting impact isn't about being perfect, but it's about learning, adapting, and then staying grounded in service. I started using reflection practices and seeking mentorship for growth. I became intentional about developing myself as a leader by taking on roles that would challenge my weaknesses. That semester, I signed up to be a peer coach and mentored about 20 first-year students to help them to navigate smoothly into Ashesi. This enabled me to listen to them, actively hear them, which embodies the active listening characteristics of a servant leader, which we discussed in class. I was later nominated as a peer captain by Miss Yvonne, the Ashesi Wellness coach, because of how dedicated I was to helping the students. Earlier that semester too, I volunteered as a buddy for two first-year students, a Ghanaian and a Cameroonian, helping them to also navigate life on campus easily. I also served as a president of HFCC, a Christian denomination on campus, organizing weekly meetings and learning to lead with patience and humility, all of which are characteristics of a good leader, which we learned in Leadership 1. When it came to academics, I was mostly the team lead in all of the courses that I took that semester, and I wasn't even actively pursuing leadership roles in that regard. I was mostly just chosen to lead because of how I took initiative. And those team collaboration taught me valuable lessons about patience and tolerance, directly addressing my weakness of impatience with slow processes. The service leadership project, coupled with learnings from class videos like Richard Chimuri's innovation with his torchlight and Michael Pritchard's lifesaver bottle, showed me how simple technologies could solve complex problems. And these examples reinforce my vision of becoming a social entrepreneur using technology for impact. By the end of the semester, I conducted my final SWOT analysis, and it felt vulnerable at the time, perhaps because I had grown so much over those months. Some of the strengths that I realized were enhanced communication skills, empathy, and growing confidence. Improved public speaking skills based on feedback and comments from faculty and peers. Improved deeper understanding and application of servant leadership principles. And then greater patience with processes and listening abilities inspired by Ubuntu principles, which we studied in class. Some of the weaknesses were my tendency to analyze decisions, sometimes slowing down progress, my occasional reluctance to celebrate small wins, and my need to further develop financial literacy for sustainable social enterprises. The opportunities that were available were the better understanding of how to leverage existing strengths in entrepreneurship through the various faculty and offices available on Ashesi. My recognition of the value of followership in leadership context. And some of the threats were the industry disruption in technology sector and the potential for the mission drift of like my vision when scaling social enterprises, the challenge of balancing passion with financial sustainability. So, with the SWOT analysis in mind, I developed a concrete plan focused on 5 key leadership competencies. The first is public speaking confidence, effective delegation of tasks, strategic time management, and financial literacy for managing social enterprises. So how did I do that? The following semester, I began my final year at Ashesi and I developed my capstone project, which was a multilingual AI-powered health education service called FredDoctor mainly for undeserved communities in Ghana and maybe later scaling into Africa. This platform connected people from any demographic and economic background to doctors via basic feature phones or smartphones. I integrated lessons from all 4 leadership seminars or courses into this project. From Leadership 1, I applied the attributes of a good leader by ensuring the project was ethically sound and centered on community needs. From Leadership 2, I incorporated the concept of fundamental human rights by making the healthcare information accessible to all. From Leadership 3, I designed a sustainable economic model that balanced social impact with financial viability. And from Leadership 4, I implemented servant leadership principles by designing the service around communities who actually needed it, not what I thought they needed. This is based off from research. So my improvements in public speaking led me to confidently pitch the FredDoctor venture to investors, resulting in a grant of $20,000 that became crucial for our initial development and launch, showing that there was an improvement in the public speaking sector. In 2026, I graduated and together with co-founders, I officially launched the FredDoctor venture. By 2030, we had reached over 3 million users and received recognition from global institutions. To address my weakness in financial literacy, I pursued a master's in global health and technology in the US. There, I witnessed the structural challenges to global healthcare systems. I also enrolled in the financial course online and also took the master's in financial accounting. I held on to Ubuntu in those spaces, knowing that I am because we are, and that true impact emerges from the collaboration and humility. In 2030, I was honored by Forbes Africa and their 30 under 30 list for healthcare innovation. That recognition was never the goal, but my true reward came from hearing rural users describing how their lives improved because they finally had access to trusted health information in their own language, which then led to so many preventable diseases. In 2031, confronting my fear of failure head-on, as inspired by Simon Sinek's choosing falling over failure, I launched Find M, a social service app that connects everyday Ghanaians to trusted service providers like tailors, tutors, house helps, and caterers. Name them. I saw too many people, especially women, struggling to find decent work or reliable help or reliable access to customers. So Find Them help them to find each other with dignity. I drew inspiration from Kweku Jacob Jan, who was a guest speaker back in 2025 in the class, who went from his father's mechanic shop to founding a tech company, a $1 million tech company. His story of perseverance, self-learning, and service helped me to reimagine entrepreneurship. Following his example, I always prioritize my workers. Since I established a business, the Find Them had a center, I always prioritize my workers and team members in all of my ventures. I never forgot home, so in 2036, I returned to Keta, where I was born and raised, and I partnered with my alma mater to launch a girl-child education and IT literacy initiative. The school is Keta. It's called Keta RC Convent Girls School. We started coding class, provided mentorship, and gave scholarships. This work embodied Ubuntu in action, which simply highlights community-centered interdependence and transformation. In 2042, I established the RDT Health Leadership Institute, focusing on mentoring the next generation of African health entrepreneurs. In 2063, I joined the African Union's Health Equity Commission. I entered policy-making spaces not as a tech expert, but as a servant leader. I remembered what Mr. Kobe mentioned to us in class, that leadership is about turning ideas into structure and taking actionable steps. And where best to do this than the policymakers themselves. Throughout the decades, I kept refining the weaknesses from my SWOT. I joined Toastmasters and learned to speak with confidence. I used time blocking and then time matrices for better time management. I reflected regularly. I self-assessed through the 4 laws of behavior change from the book Atomic Habits. And then I asked for feedback and continuously improved. I set timelines, reviewed progress, and shared updates from my mentor and accountability partner, Dennis Owusu, who never stopped guiding me. And even back then, I wrote a note to him telling him that he should hold me accountable for everything I planned to be. In all things, I celebrated failure as a teacher and remained a student of life. As I have said, for my legacy, I believe I help people feel seen and heard in systems that often ignore them. For people in the undeserved communities, the tailors, the hairdressers, I used AI not to replace doctors, but to extend care and to connect service providers to potential customers. I led not for applause, but to serve. I lived out my faith through impact, and I reminded young people that leadership can be both brilliant and quiet. And today, at 70, if you ask me what my legacy is, in short, I'd say I made people feel seen. Whether it was a shoemaker in Dansoman, a teenage girl in Keta, or a young founder trying to use AI for good, which I minted. This 70-year-old version of me speaking to you now is still guided by the young woman who sat in that Ashesi classroom thinking deeply about how to serve well. And of course, I still keep in touch with my wonderful lecturer, Mr. Albert, and the FI, Maureen, till this day. So to the next generation, your leadership journey is not waiting to start. It has already begun. Stay grounded, stay reflective. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that the work you are doing now will ripple for decades to come. Adios. The gifts God gave me to uplift others. Who is that?